Hey everyone, my name is Marvin and I like every type of art. Today, with a little delay, things are about to get spooky one more time. I'm building a haunted Halloween horror house. I was actually supposed to be ready by Halloween, but due to some things, I couldn't make it in time, so you're getting the video now. For the base structure of the house, I'm using an old mason jar and covering it with clay. Since it doesn't go quite as smoothly as I hope, I grab my rolling pin and beat the clay until it's as flat as the flattest flounder you've ever seen. Next I apply some baking bond onto the jar and rub it with layers of clay, smoothing it out with my hands until it gets reasonably even surface. Then I continue smoothing it, but first I put on a pair of gloves to avoid leaving too many fingerprints in the clay. After that I take my rolling pin, press it against the jar and roll the jar along the pin to give the surface the final smooth finish. Next I cut out the door template from a piece of paper, press it against the jar and trace the shape into the clay using my sculpting tool. Then I add a few vertical lines to represent the wooden planks of the door. Using my small bore stylus I carefully add a wood grain texture to make it really look like wood. After that I grab some Super Sculpey Living Doll clay and roll it into a long rectangular strip. I place this around the door to serve as a door frame, attaching it to the jar. With my sculpting tools I divide the strip into small blocks to give the frame a stone-like look. To make these blocks look more like bricks, I use my hobby knife to trim and roughen some of the edges, giving them a more rugged stone-like appearance. Then I take my next paper template, press it against the jar and use my hobby knife to cut around it, creating a perfect cycle for the house's first window. Afterward I remove the clay from the inside of the circle, revealing the glass beneath. I then apply some baking bond around the edges of the window, roll out another strip of clay and place it around the window to form the frame. Now I'm ready to shape the window frame. I then divide the window frame into 4 equal sections to make it look like the frame is made of multiple wooden elements. Just like with the door I use my small bore stylus to add a wood texture to the frame. Finally I add 2 more clay pieces across the center of the window. One horizontal, one vertical. I blend both pieces into the window frame using my sculpting tools. Now the house has its first charming wooden frame window. I repeat the entire process on the other side as well, since the 2 windows will eventually represent the eyes of the house. Now I start sculpting individual bricks onto the surface of the house. Using my bore stylus tool, I carve the first brick into the clay. Then add the next one beside it. I repeat this around the entire surface of the house. This process actually took the longest of all, just a few seconds for you, but for me it was about 2 hours. But hey, anything for a great project and a good video. It takes as long as it takes. I hope you enjoy this rocky moment. Now it's time to give all the bricks a proper stone-like texture. To do this I roll up some aluminium foil into a ball and tap it across the entire surface of the house. This gives each brick a realistic stone-like finish. Even the stones on the door frame gets a special treatment. Next I drill small holes into the door frame. I place a tooth in each one. I made these teeth off camera and pre-baked them, so they press easily into the surface. I walk my way along the entire door frame. Finally I blend the roots of each tooth into the surface to make sure they hold securely. Since, as you've probably noticed, the door will be the mouth of the house, it's time to add gums for the teeth. I roll out small clay strips and place them between and around the teeth, sculpting them carefully. For this I use my bore stylus tool, working along the entire jawline to add gums to each tooth. The upper side of the teeth also get its own layer of gums. The next step is to split the door planks down in the middle with my hobby knife. I then fold one half of the planks upward and the other half downward. This will represent the inside of our monster's house mouth. At this point the glass is visible again, so you can look through the mouth into the interior of the house. Next I take some clay and roll a small ball with my hands, placing it on my baking sheet. I make a lot more of these little balls, which will become the monster eyes that I'll attach all over the surface of the house. Once the eyes have hardened in the oven, I can cut each one in half with my craft knife. I do the same with all the other balls. This doubles the numbers of eyes, as only one half of each ball will be visible on the surface. Now I attach each eye to the surface of the house. I use my large ball stylus to make a small indentation in the surface, then press the eye into the stone wall of the house. I repeat this process for the rest of the eyes on the house. Next I move on to the eyelids. I roll out a smaller piece of clay into a very thin sheet and place the first piece over the top half of the eye. Then I use my ball stylus tool to shape the clay around the eye. Any excess clay that hangs over the edge, I cut off with my hobby knife. After that, I sculpt the lower eyelid in the same way. Then I take my smallest ball stylus tool and sculpt the skin folds of the eyelids. I repeat the entire process for all the other eyes. Now I'm starting to paint the house. First I paint some of the bricks on the facade in brown. Then I move on to a few bricks in red, purple, a darker shade of brown, and some in dark green. Next I apply a brown base coat to the window frames. I am painting the entire haunted house in base colors first, which I later blend together for depth. The stone around the door frame gets the same color as the window frames. Then I mix a thin pink wash and use it to paint the gums of the mouth. The second window is of course painted in brown to match the first. The fleshy skin around the eyes and eyelids are painted with the same pink wash as the mouth gum. I do this for each eye as well. The door is painted in a brown tone too. As you can see, the house is taking shape and its creepy appearance is slowly coming to life. Now I'm adding highlights to the window frames with a beige tone. I do the same for the wooden planks on the door. Next, the eyes get the final base color. For this, I mix a thicker pink shade, using less water to make it more opaque, and paint all the eyes across the surface of the house. After that, I use my pre-made black wash and apply it across the entire surface of the house. The black paint seeps into all the crevices and cracks, giving the whole surface more depth and texture. Once everything is fully dry, I do a dark grey brush over the surface to tone down the colors of the bricks, as they are still a bit too bright and vibrant. I repeat this with a light grey dry brush to add highlights and emphasize all the edges of the stones, giving them a bit of pop. The eyes get a red wash as well. Here too, the darker color flows into all the ridges and corners, giving the eyes more depth. I blot any excess paint with a paper towel. Now I'm using white paint to repaint the visible eyeballs on each eye. Bright them back to a crisp white. The window frames and the door planks get a light beige dry brush, which highlight all the raised edges and gives the surface a more realistic look. Next I use a fine detail brush, actually a nail art brush, to add more texture and detail to the wood by painting thin lighter wood grain lines. I do this for both window frames and of course for the door planks. It's always exciting to watch as an object gradually comes to life with each detail. Now using a larger brush, I start painting the irises on the eyes. The first eyes get a green iris while the other eyes get a red one. I figure these two colors would suit a monster house with tons of eyes perfectly. Now I need some clear varnish. Since I don't have any on hand, I'm using transparent nail polish, which works just as well. I brush this onto all the fleshy surface, the eyes, the skin around them, and the house's mouth. This really brings it to life. Now all that's missing is a roof. For that I grab a big piece of aluminium foil and crumble it into a long cone. That matches the size of the jar lid. Then I take Super Sculpey Original, which is very soft and easy to shape. With a bit of effort, I flatten the clay into a sheet. Then I take this thin clay sheet and rub them around the entire aluminium cone. Next I lay out a thin sheet of clay on my baking tray and cut small rectangles with my craft knife. These will serve as the roof tiles. Once the cone has hardened in the oven, I start attaching the tiles. I place the first tile at the bottom edge of the roof, then add the next one slightly overlapping the first. I continue placing the tiles around the roof in rings, working my way up until I reach the very top. This process took hours again, so here's for you in fast forward. Don't want anyone falling asleep. For the colors I need two shades of brown, a brown orange, dark red and blue. I diluted these with a bit of water to make them easier to apply. Then I start applying the colors on the roof, alternating between them. First brown, followed by blue, purple, then red, orange, and the second brown. I don't really follow a strict pattern, just alternating the colors until there are no more white spots visible. I let everything dry well. Next I use my black wash again and apply it across the entire roof surface. Like before, the wash flows into all the crevices, just like it did on the house itself. Now I finally add the black pupils to each eye. I'd forgotten them earlier, but no worries, it's all coming together now. The roof also get a few dry brushes in various shades of grey, purple and green. Then I use a cut and swab, dip a bit of wooden glue onto certain spots on the roof and sprinkle some bits of artificial moss. This gives the roof a weathered, eerie look, perfect for adding to the creepy haunted house vibe. And so, that's it. The Halloween haunted horror house is complete. And now for you all, the final reveal. Alright, that's it for this video. We reached the end once again. Huge thanks to those of you who stay until the end. You're the ones really supporting this channel. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe button and make sure to ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.